Fuel pump has been stripped. I've cleaned all the sludge and muck out of everything. Everything looks okay. Even the valves and the diaphragm didn't look too bad. But I've got a new kit to replace everything. That's in the box there. Everything seems to be functional. Nothing's damaged. The filter there, slight damage on the top there, not much. A little bit of corrosion in around here, which I've managed to clean up. So that's just the whatever the metal is, some form of alloy is corroded, but that's cleaned up. So everything's ready to go back. There's nothing I need to fix other than to reinstall things. I may clean up the heads of these screws here, or little bolts. They're a little bit damaged, so I just might clean those up with either a file or a blade, just to make sure they're functional. The glass was okay, no damage to that, so that's good. So I'll just set everything out and I'll start to reassemble. It's not a lot to look at. I mean, you've got to put the diaphragm in the right way, otherwise it won't connect with the little dog at the bottom here. So I've got to do that. I've got to make sure the valves are around the right way, that you know which one's sucking and which one's pumping the other way. So just a few things there to be assured of. So I'll do that, but the assembly should be straightforward. Right, reassembling the pump. You get instructions with the kit, which shows you how to reinstall the diaphragm. The diaphragm has a little lug on there, and the housing has a little lug on there. You start with the lug on the diaphragm in the 11 o'clock position. So there's the old one. Put that up in the 11 o'clock position, which means that this is straight up and down with the slot in the housing, and then you turn it to the left until you've got it into that position. So that's pretty straightforward. Other things to remember, there's a hole in the housing here which enables the diaphragm to breathe and also any excess oil to come out. And also the positioning of the two valves. You need to make sure that you've got them round the right way. So when the pump, in this case when the diaphragm goes down, it sucks fuel in that from that valve, which corresponds with the inlet pipe, and it pumps out that valve, which is the outlet pipe. I mean, you can put them around the other way, but the pump won't work. So that's the only other thing. Everything else is pretty straightforward. So I'll just keep assembling and then put it back on the car. I'm putting the manifold back on the engine. First of all, I've cleaned up these threads because they actually haven't had any nuts on them for over 25 years. So there's a little bit of rust in the threads, so it's better to clean those up before you actually put them on. Makes it a lot easier. The exhaust manifold I need to put on first, because it's in terms of access, it's a lot easier to get that on. Right. Okay. Goes on in two parts, of course. Let's put some loosely on there for the moment. Right. These are brass nuts, the original ones, so where's that go? There. Okay, that's on. The washer's on. The other thing I've been doing is finding the bolts for all of the bits and pieces. I think I've got them all. There's a bracket that goes on here that I'm just cleaning up at the moment, which has got controls, which I assume are for the carburetor, so I'm just cleaning those up at present, making sure they're all the movement is free. I'll just put these in place. Okay, the inlet manifold, this one here, just cleaned that one up, that's in good condition. Put that one on, hopefully I can get it in. Right, once again just put everything on. Access on this is not too bad, but really you end up doing it with a spanner rather than a socket. It's a lot easier, and you also don't run the risk of stripping the brass nuts. It's a lot easier to do, put this on if you don't have a mudguard on. That's why I didn't put the mudguards on while I'm rebuilding the engine. Saves leaning over everything. Alright, That's done. Now I need to we need to mount that control here, which I'll do once I've cleaned that up, and then find the carburetor and all its linkages to see how that goes on. So I'll probably do that. Maybe I should put the exhaust pipe on before I put that on, get access. I found the exhaust bolts, that's a start. Just need to find the bottom pipe, so I'll look for that now. Now, harmonic dampers, and I've got a few of these, are things that you certainly can't recondition at home. Well, I can't. And in Australia, there's only one place that can do it, and if they haven't got the tooling set up to do it, it costs, well, I was quoted well over $1,000. Now you can get these in England, reconditioned, exchange from the usual suppliers. You can probably get them in New Zealand. Not sure about other countries. I chose not to go down that path. Also chose not to use the existing one. I mean, the rubber is quite soft, so I can't imagine it would last all that long once it was spinning around. But I did contact our only place in Australia and they offered an alternative. Now, the damper section of the device, which is this, it's got an outer cover and a solid steel inner piece separated by rubber. This outer piece they call a backing plate. Now, the supplier in Australia sent me some diagrams of a Toyota backing plate. I don't know whether you can see that. Now, the dimensions are very close. The holes, of course, for the pulley don't quite line up, but everything else is close. The inner diameter of this piece here is quite close. It's only a millimetre or so out. The external diameter is within a few millimetres. The thickness is down a bit. It's nowhere near the thickness of this, but it's, well, to me it's close enough to be able to have the alternative. Now, that's the one I've got. This is a Toyota backing plate. It's been drilled to fit the pulley off the Daimler, so everything lines up inside. And the cost, well, the cost is around about $100, which is not bad. The only problem in Australia at the moment is the supply of the backing plates. Now, although the rubber compounds are put in place in Australia, these backing plates come from China. And yes, the manufacturing processes in China at the moment are down, and they didn't have much of a supply of these. So at the moment, probably can't get the Toyota backing plate in Australia, but given time that will change. But it's an alternative. So anyone that's looking at a cheaper way, you need to look at perhaps going down that line. Now, whether the performance is going to be the same, I have no idea. But won't know that till I put it on the car. But and start the engine, of course. So that's it. I've been waiting for that to come. Fairly quick turnaround, only a couple of weeks. As I say, otherwise I would have either had to send to England, get an exchange one of these, which is quite costly with exchange rates and freight and so on, getting it over here. I don't deny the cost of doing that, but I looked for an alternative. Anyway, I'm about to put this back on the car. I've just been putting this in place. I've had to lift the motor up, and I don't at this stage have it locked down on the engine mount, so that's not so much of a problem. But it needs to come up so you can get clearance to feed it into the end of the crankshaft. Just for information, I actually did weigh this. This new setup with the Toyota backing plate weighs 4 kilo. The original one, the one I weighed, is about 4 3/4 kilos, so it's about 750 grams lighter. As I said, diameter is the same. The thickness is where the difference is. This casing just goes in a little bit further. Anyway, I'll be interested to see how it works. Hopefully it'll work okay and won't end up with additional vibration, but won't know that till it's started. But it's gone on so far quite okay. I probably need to just notice it's hitting on the captive washer there. I probably need to just spread that out a little bit so it makes it a bit easier to wind the nut on. But I'll do that, and I'll put the final nut on and lock that up. The other thing I've done, you'll see this on the camera, hang on a second. Okay, the other thing I've done is to put the generator, or Dynamo as they call it, on. I haven't locked that up yet. This is one that I actually cleaned up many years ago, and providing there's no wear in the shaft, which there was none in this, just some standard things to do. Clean the main, I think they call it the commutator brass at the end of the armature. Make sure that's nice and clean. You can use a little bit of a fine emery cloth for that. You've of course got to pull it apart. And I put some new bushes in too, so it should be okay. I've got plenty of these lying around, so even if it's not okay, I've got another one I can put on. But as I say, it's got no move, or no slop in the bearing. Everything's free, and I've just cleaned up all the contacts inside, so it should be okay. So that's the other thing I've done. But anyway, I'll just finish locking up the front hub here, and that means then I can lower the motor down and start putting the engine mounts on, so which I haven't done yet. I haven't bolted those on. I've now locked up the nut on the harmonic balance, so that's right, that's fitted. Put the torsion bar on the front. Couldn't put that on because I needed access to that, so that's all done. I'm now trying to position the engine mounts and the gearbox mount. Now there are a few mounting points you've got to line up. At this stage I hadn't put the or bolted the mounts in place, mainly because I needed to lift the front of the motor up to get this on. Now that's done, I can position the motor. It's a little bit out of skew, that's an exaggeration, but I've got to bring the motor around so it's true. So it's got to line up with the mounting holes which are on the chassis there. It's just a little bit out there, and obviously a little bit out this side. With this particular car, there are also other mounting points, not so much mounting points. You've got this I guess engine steady, or not sure what technical term for it is, but that's got rubber mounts below and above that plate there. So I've got to position that and lock that up. I haven't done that yet. Also, these two here, these are the same thing. These are the gearbox stabilisers. Now, the only ones I can find are broken, so I've actually got to repair. I'll probably repair this one. I'll weld a bolt onto this to replace that. This one here, they'd actually welded the two pieces together. Now this is an adjustable link, so a fixed link's not really what you want. So I've got to do that. That comes in at the back of the car, at the back of the gearbox. Probably can't see it, but it goes down in on the side in there, so I've got to position that. Obviously there's a gearbox mount just under the rear of the gearbox here. Trying to get the light in the right position. Always in the way. So it goes under the back end of the gearbox here, so I've got to do that, but only once it's lined up. Now I've got a trolley jack under the rear of the gearbox. I'll probably just use the pry bar to gently move it. It's not far out, but it's got to come across a bit, so I'll do that, and then I can start to lock the motor into position, which I really need to do because other things depend on that motor being in the right place, like the linkages to the gearbox and so on. So I'll just do this task now and get that out of the way. Now there's my repaired link for the stabiliser link for the gearbox. Put some new bushes in and welded the section on here that was snapped off, so put a new, actually welded a bolt onto that, so that should work okay. I've now just got to climb under the car and fit that back on, so that will make the sort of the engine mounting process complete.